When Married with Children first hit TV screens, nobody thought it would last. The critics hated it, but the audience, they couldn't get enough. Week after week, the Bundy family turned chaos into comedy gold, and soon the show became one of the most talked about series of its time. The cast clicked in a way you could feel, but the real shock lives off camera. Pay cuts, wild auditions, jokes that almost got cut, scenes saved by accidents, goofs you never saw because you were laughing. And one truth Ed kept quiet until now. He finally explains what most fans missed. Join us as we revisit the show, the cast, the chaos, and the secrets. The series that broke the mold. Married with Children started on April 5, 1987, and ended on June 9, 1997. It was created by Michael G. Moy and Ron Levitt for the new Fox network. It was Fox's first primetime series. It also became the longest-running live-action sitcom ever aired on Fox. The show ran for 11 seasons and delivered 259 episodes. The official run closed with an episode on May 5, 1997, and 2 unaired episodes later popped up on June 9, 1997, and June 18, 2002. The story was set in Chicago and followed a loud, messy family that laughed at pain and pushed buttons on purpose. This was not a clean, sweet sitcom. That was the point. The early working title was Not the Cosbys. The message was simple: do the opposite of the perfect TV family. Fox executives told the creators to be as outrageous as they could be, to try things the big networks would not allow. Not everyone at Fox felt sure. CEO Barry Diller had his doubts. Critics were mixed during the original run, too. The humor was bold, sexual, and loud. The family was dysfunctional, but viewers tuned in because it felt real in a twisted, funny way. The theme song, Love and Marriage by Sammy Cahn and Jimmy Van Heusen, sung by Frank Sinatra, added a joke on top of a joke. The song sounded warm and classic, while the family did everything but play nice. That clash made the show stand out on day one. The more people watched, the more they noticed the small things that kept the laughs going. And that leads us right into the people who made the chaos sing. Inside the Bundy house, Al Bundy, played by Ed O'Neill, was the heart of the show. Al called it the Bundy curse. He was a former high school football star, stuck selling women's shoes. His best memory was scoring 4 touchdowns in a single game for Polk High. He clung to that win because nothing good seemed to happen after. He hated his job, he hated his bills, but he loved a few simple things. He watched Psycho Dad. He kept a stash of big uns. He held on to his old 1972 Dodge Dart, a car with more than 1 million miles on it. Al complained non-stop, but he also protected his family when it mattered. Peggy Bundy, played by Katie Sagal, was a lazy redhead who would not cook, would not clean, and would not work. She lived for talk shows and shopping sprees with Al's money. She mocked his job, his pay, and his poor sexual abilities. She dragged the family into debt and into trouble. Her best friend was Marcy, and the two of them often made Al's day even worse. Peggy's side of the family was a wild bunch, especially her mother, whom Al could not stand. Kelly Bundy, played by Christina Applegate, was the pretty but dim-witted daughter. She forgot things fast and mixed up simple words. She dated guys who drove Al crazy and kept the family drama loud. Bud Bundy, played by David Faustino, was the younger child. He was smarter, but obsessed with girls, and his plans usually failed. Kelly and Bud insulted each other all the time, but they showed up for each other when the mess got real. This mix of bitterness and loyalty made the Bundys feel human. They were petty, they were rude, they were funny, and they kept the laughs coming because the next scene could turn in any direction. But the Bundys did not live alone on that street, and what happened next door made the jokes hit even harder. The neighbors who pushed every button. Marcy Rhodes, later Marcy Darcy, played by Amanda Bears, was the neighbor who always fought with Al. She was a banker, a feminist, and an environmentalist. She founded FANG, short for Feminists Against Neanderthal Guys. Al pushed back with his men's group, No Ma'am, the National Organization of Men Against Amazonian Masterhood. Their battles were constant and sharp. Marcy's first husband, Steve Rhodes, played by David Garrison, was a stiff banker who loved his Mercedes-Benz and did not even let Marcy drive it. Over time, Steve and Marcy grew apart. He left during season 4 to become a forest ranger at Yosemite National Park. He later returned in The Egg and I, trying to step back into his old life, but Jefferson got in the way. Steve later turned up as the dean at Bud's college after some behind-the-scenes power plays. Marcy's second husband, Jefferson Darcy, played by Ted McGinley, was a smooth talker and a scammer. He had no job, no money, and used charm to get by. He distracted Marcy with his looks when trouble hit. In several episodes, there were hints, never confirmed, that he had a past as a former CIA operative. Unlike Steve, Jefferson was lazy and fun, and strangely, he became one of Al's closest friends. The neighbor drama made every episode feel like a small war. Al and Marcy fought about everything: money, gender, power, pride. Kelly and Bud threw in jokes from the sidelines. Peggy and Marcy stirred the pot with glee. It felt messy because it was meant to be messy. And while the characters lit the fire on screen, the way the show was taped and moved behind the scenes kept that flame burning bright. The behind-the-scenes fans missed. The first 2 seasons were videotaped in front of a studio audience at the ABC Television Center in Los Feliz, Los Angeles. Real laughs filled the room and sharpened the timing. Seasons 3 through 8 were recorded at Sunset Gower Studios in Hollywood. Seasons 9 through 11 moved again, this time to Sony Pictures Studios in Culver City. These shifts did not slow the pace. They helped the show grow and stay fresh. The production changed hands too. The series began at Embassy Communications. Halfway through Season 2, ELP Communications under Columbia Pictures Television took over. The machine behind the camera was always moving, and that steady engine kept the Bundys on the air for a full decade. The cheerful theme, Love and Marriage, rolled at the top of every episode. It sounded warm, but it set up a joke, because nothing in the Bundy home was tidy or sweet. Critics stayed mixed all the way through. The jokes were sexual, the family was harsh, but the audience kept coming back. They liked the honesty inside the wrongness. They liked that the show said the quiet part out loud. In 2008, long after the last episode aired, Married with Children landed at number 94 on Entertainment Weekly's New TV Classics list. The Bundys still mattered. In May 2022, news broke that an animated revival was in the works. The story would live on in a new form. That tells you something big about the show's place in TV history. It began as Not the Cosbys, with orders to be bold, and it survived doubts at the top of the company. It stood out as Fox's first primetime series and became the network's longest-running live-action sitcom. But did you know that when Married with Children first aired in 1987, the reaction from critics was not glowing? Mixed reactions from the start. The first season carried a Metacritic score of 58 out of 100, which is considered mixed. Reviews of the very first episode show just how divided people were. Howard Rosenberg of the Los Angeles Times praised the casting of the Bundys. He felt the family dynamic worked, but he thought the development of the Rhodes characters was weak. He also warned viewers by saying, "The satire is heavy-handed." At the same time, Tom Shales from The Washington Post looked at the exact same episode and called it nasty-minded, overacted, and poorly cast. John J. O'Connor of The New York Times was just as sharp. He described the series as loud, coarse, and life of the party vulgar. He even compared it to older shows like The Life of Riley and All in the Family. But he made it clear he thought Married with Children was not on the same level. To him, it was pure blue-collar shtick, dressed up with the usual sexual potency and bathroom jokes. These early reviews painted a clear picture. Critics thought the show was rough, cheap, and even offensive. But while they were busy pointing fingers, the audience started to find something funny and real in the Bundys. It was the kind of response that showed the series was going to divide people from day one. And if the critics thought the content was too much, they had no idea what kind of chaos would be happening behind the cameras. The Wild Antics of Sam Kinison, a new book about Married with Children, pulled back the curtain on some shocking behind-the-scenes stories. One of the wildest figures to appear on the set was actor and comedian Sam Kinison. He was already famous in the 1980s for being loud, outrageous, and unpredictable. Sam appeared in Season 4 as a guardian angel, but even though he was only around for 2 episodes, he left a permanent mark on everyone who worked there. Author Richard Gurman revealed just how disruptive Sam could be. On his very first day, Sam mooned the entire cast and crew, pulling down his pants and showing his backside. On the second day, he tried to make up for arriving late by bringing strippers to set. They actually served lunch to the cast and crew, turning the workplace into a circus. But it did not stop there. Richard wrote that Sam had tension with director Jerry Cohen. That tension escalated to something truly frightening. At one point, Sam pulled out a gun and threatened to shoot Jerry. The situation grew so personal that Jerry suspected Sam was having an affair with his girlfriend. He even went to Sam's house one night to check if she was there, and that led to Sam waving the firearm in his face. Richard later wrote, Sam's attention-getting antics on the stage made working with him a challenge and provided some eye-opening examples of what he would have been like to work with on a regular basis. These stories showed that even guest stars could bring chaos to the set. Sam was once even considered for the role of Al Bundy himself, and Roseanne Barr was originally in mind for Peggy Bundy. But in the end, Ed O'Neill and Katie Sagal took those parts, and Michael Moy later admitted he was relieved. As he put it, "We never liked working with comedians because they come in with their character already. What were we going to do? Tell Roseanne how to do her domestic goddess thing? We were gonna tell Sam Kinison how to do his thing? There'd be fighting all the time. The cast we got was the one that could keep the show steady, even when the scripts and guest stars pushed the limits. And while Sam left the stage, the drama outside the show was only beginning. Boycotts, backlash, and more secrets. From the start, Married with Children was controversial. Its humor about sex, family fights, and bad behavior sparked anger across the country. Some people loved it, but others wanted it off the air. One of the loudest critics was a woman named Terry Rakolta from Michigan. She watched an episode with her kids that included vibrator jokes, and she was furious. She began appearing on talk shows and called on people to boycott the series. She even reached out to Fox directly. At one point, she was connected to show writer Marcy Vosburgh. The two got into an argument, and Marcy told her if she felt the show was so insulting, she had the freedom to change the channel. Terry later admitted she thought she was talking to a Fox executive, not a writer. Had she known, she might have acted differently. But at that point, the damage was done. Instead of hurting the series, Terry's boycott only gave it more attention. People who might not have watched the show before tuned in just to see what the fuss was about. The negative attention turned into free advertising, and that same raunchy script and somewhat offending humor became the style that made Married with Children different from every other sitcom of its time. The controversy only made it more popular. The new book also revealed that when Ed O'Neill was first asked to audition, his agents told him it was a horrible show on a dubious new network. But Ed read the script and fell in love with it. Christina Applegate also remembered her first reaction. She said she found the script disgusting at first, but after watching the pilot episode, she came around. Even the actors had to be convinced that this wild new show was worth their time. But once they stepped into character, the magic was undeniable. And yet, not all relationships on set were smooth. Ed O'Neill and Amanda Bearse's feud. For years, fans believed the cast of Married with Children were one big family both on and off screen. But Ed O'Neill revealed in January 2024 that this was not always the case. In an interview on Jesse Tyler Ferguson's podcast, Dinners on Me, he admitted that he had a long-running feud with Amanda Bearse, who played neighbor Marcy. He said, "I did a thing on the show that involved Amanda Bearse that I regretted. We didn't get along, but we did for a long time." Ed explained the conflict started during a big moment for the cast, their cover shoot for TV Guide. At the time, only a limited number of cast members were allowed on the cover. Amanda and David Garrison, who played Steve Rhodes, were told they could not be included. They expected Ed, as the lead, to fight for them. Amanda and David came out of their dressing rooms together and asked him to go to co-creator Ron Levitt to demand that all the cast members be included. Ed refused. He told them, "We were lucky to get it. It was like the 6th year in or something, and we were thrilled to get the cover of TV Guide." He admitted he was blunt and said to Amanda, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm sorry you guys aren't on the cover. I really am. I wish you were, but we can't do anything about it. What do you want me to do? Lie to you and tell you I'm going to bat for you? I'm not Ed." Now says he regrets handling it that way. He admitted he should have been more diplomatic and at least pretended to try. But at the time, he feared that pushing the issue might cause them to lose the cover altogether. The feud carried on for years, and in 2010, Ed even lashed out publicly when Amanda did not invite him to her wedding to Carrie Schenken. What started with a magazine cover ended up being one of the most bitter divides in the cast. It showed that even when the cameras stopped rolling, the battles inside the Bundy world were not over. That rift wasn't the only crack. Behind the laughs, the set could feel sharp and unsafe. And the stories from the cast make that clear. A set where nobody felt safe. While fans saw the Bundy family as funny, wild, and outrageous. According to the stars, life behind the scenes was not always fun. Katie Sagal, who played Peggy Bundy, opened up on her podcast with her husband Kurt Sutter. She admitted, "We were a sarcastic, cynical bunch. You weren't safe, really. You turned your back, somebody's going to talk shit on you." Christina Applegate, who played Kelly Bundy, joined the podcast and agreed. She remembered overhearing people bad-mouthing her when she was only steps away. "I could hear being talked saint about in my dressing room on the monitor," she revealed. "I'd come up from rehearsal, and I can hear everybody on set, literally talking shit about me. I was like, wow, I was just there 20 seconds ago." For a young actress, the experience was bruising. She said it was harsh to feel the sting of gossip while working on one of the most popular shows in America. Sagal admitted the cast was brutally honest with each other, but Applegate carried scars from being singled out. Their stories showed that while fans laughed at the Bundys on screen, the environment behind the cameras could cut much deeper, and that pressure soon took a personal toll on Christina in ways she hid for years. Christina Applegate's silent struggles. Christina Applegate later spoke about how the show affected her as a teenager. She revealed that being in the spotlight led her into a dangerous eating disorder. On her Misi podcast, she confessed, "Playing that character kind of did things to me in my psyche that were no bueno, like anorexia." She described it as a pretty bad eating disorder that lasted for a long time. She admitted she kept it private, never telling anyone at the time. Instead, she would hide just to eat. "I would hide in bathrooms to eat because I had so much shame around eating," she explained. She even recalled being on airplanes with the cast when they traveled overseas. She said, "I remember hiding in there to eat like one shrimp because I was so afraid if anyone saw me eat that they'd think I was going to try to get fat or something. I don't know. I was in such a dark space." Katie Sagal supported her during that podcast episode and added that Applegate had been very much scrutinized on the show. She explained that her young co-star was treated as the sex symbol, even though she was only 17 years old when the show began. Sagal pointed out that such heavy pressure could FK with anyone's head. She added, "Chrissy was very much scrutinized and tried to keep in a box, so they put her in tighter skirts and shorter skirts, so there was a lot of that." The show's provocative humor crossed into wardrobe decisions that shaped how Applegate was seen. But in a twist, Applegate revealed that the wardrobe choices were partly her idea. Reinventing Kelly Bundy. Applegate explained that the original version of her character, Kelly Bundy, was not what fans remember today. Kelly was first written as a tough biker girl, but Christina had another vision. She was inspired by a character from the 1981 documentary, The Decline of Western Civilization. Part 2, The Metal Years. She told the wardrobe team about it. "She had this big effing hair and a white lycra dress," Applegate recalled, And I went to the wardrobe department and I said, "We're changing this. We gotta represent the zeitgeist of this rock, slutty video vixen thing that's going on in the world right now, where the men and the women all look the same. You know, they have the same hairdos." So, that's where she came from. Her vision reshaped Kelly into the clueless, over-the-top teen that fans grew to love. Still, the decision came with heavy baggage. Being the sex symbol of the show meant constant scrutiny and expectations. Behind the laughs, Christina was quietly fighting her own private battles. Sagal agreed that the entire environment was very misogynistic, and Applegate's personal pain made that clear. While the role made her famous, it also created scars she carried long after the cameras stopped rolling. But while Christina's story revealed the darker side of fame, Ed O'Neill, who played Al Bundy, offered another kind of truth about how fans saw the show and how they saw him. Ed O'Neill on Fame Without Respect? Ed O'Neill is forever linked to Al Bundy, the grumpy shoe salesman who made viewers laugh for 11 seasons. But O'Neill admitted that people never wanted to see themselves in the character. Talking to Jesse Tyler Ferguson on the Dinners on Me podcast, O'Neill explained how fans usually approached him. He said, "It was also the kind of show that nobody liked to admit that they liked. For example, you do 260 shows. You run into a lot of people and they'll tell you if they liked the show. If they didn't, they usually don't even come around. If they like it, they would say, 'You know, you remind me of my brother. You remind me of my uncle. You remind me of my father. My best friend. Never them. I never once heard, 'You remind me of me.'" Laughs. His laugh told the story. Al Bundy was funny to watch, but no one wanted to admit they lived like him. He was lazy, bitter, and openly crude. That distance helped fans enjoy the show, but it also showed how different it was from other sitcoms of the time. O'Neill also admitted that while the show was a hit, it was not respected by Hollywood insiders. He said simply, "I mean, it was a success, but it wasn't respected by my peers." Even though the series lasted 11 seasons and pulled in millions of fans, O'Neill knew it carried a reputation as crude and lowbrow. The awards never came, and critics continued to dismiss it as tasteless. Yet the laughter never stopped. For Ed O'Neill, that was the strange truth. He was beloved by audiences, but the industry looked the other way. And while the show created unforgettable characters, its legacy also carried the pain, gossip, and secrets of the stars who lived it. The day a stranger broke the news, Ed O'Neill says he found out Married with Children was canceled in the most impersonal way. Not from the network, not from a producer, from a stranger. He told the story on The Messy with Christina Applegate and Jamie Lynn Sigler podcast. He was back in his hometown, staying at a small bed and breakfast. It was spring. The garden looked beautiful. Then a car rolled in with "Just Married" on the back and tin cans clinking. The couple stepped out, she in a gown, he in a tux. The groom looked at Ed and said, "Oh my God, it's Al Bundy, in Ohio." Ed smiled and said, "Yeah, congratulations. You got married." Then the mood flipped. The bride said, "We're so sorry about your show." Ed replied, "What do you mean?" That's when the groom dropped the bomb. "Oh my God, he doesn't know. It's on the radio. You got canceled." Imagine hearing that after 10 years as Al Bundy. Ed was shocked, but he stayed kind. He even had champagne with the newlyweds. He told them, "I'd rather hear it from you." He walked back inside and tried to enjoy the day. He still loved champagne. That was the end of a long run that began in 1987 and followed a working-class Chicago family. Al, Peggy, Kelly, and Bud. The show made people laugh, even when life in the Bundy house was a mess. But the way the cast learned it was over? That hurt, and Ed wasn't the only one who felt blindsided by how the news spread. Christina Applegate says she didn't get a call either. She learned about the cancellation through a chain of people. "A guy who knew a guy who worked for my assistant at the time." She said, "That's how I found out. They never called us, no final meeting, no personal note, just second-hand whispers." It stung after years of work and pressure in the spotlight. Christina had already shared how hard those years could be. She was young, famous, and watched by everyone. The show turned her into a household name, but it also brought a heavy load. She had spoken before about the toll and about how the spotlight pushed her into dark places. Still, she showed up. She delivered the Kelly Bundy fans remember. And when the end came, she found out almost the same way viewers did, like a rumor, not a goodbye. Ed added one more detail that showed how cold it felt. He said he never received a last show gift from the network. He joked about what other casts got. I said, I thought the Golden Girls got Mercedes-Benzes when they did their last show, which they did. Then he added, never got a gift. It was a small thing, but it symbolized a lot. After 11 seasons, loyal work, and a hit character, there was no parting gesture. No rap bow, just silence. Even after the cancellation shock, the memories stayed. The fans kept stopping Ed to share their coded praise. Never me, always my brother, my father, my best friend. The pain of how it ended sat beside the joy of what it gave. That's the real picture Ed and Christina painted. A hit that people still watch. A goodbye that never felt like a goodbye. And a truth about TV fame that doesn't always come with respect. And just when you think that's the last twist, one more question hangs in the air. What else did they hear secondhand before the rest of us did? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time!